Namaste. Hey everybody, welcome. Namaste. We don't always have a lot of time for our practice, but that doesn't mean that we can't make the most of it. Let's come to tabletop and get started. So I've got my hands right under my shoulders, and if they're feeling a little sensitive or if that's uncomfortable, you can always walk them forward of the shoulders instead. You can also put your hands into fists if that feels better. The toes are tucked under behind me, and I'm just going to start by leaning back into the toes, so I'm stretching the bottoms of my feet, and then rocking forward into the hands to stretch the wrists. So we're going back and forth rocking here. Now, as you do this, see if you can keep your torso really steady. So I'm not dropping my belly, I'm just sort of keeping a strong connection between my shoulders and my hips. Then we'll make it into a circle. And as you go around and the weight shifts from side to side, notice how the stretch sensation might change through the feet and the hands. And if it's too much for the feet, you can always put the tops of the feet down instead. It is good to stretch in this way if the body's okay with it. And let's go the other way, around in a circle the other direction. And now if you want to try it, you might put the tops of the feet down so that as you lean back, we're stretching into the tops of the feet. Some people may find that they need that stretch a little bit more. Next time that you come back into that back position, let's pause here, walking ourselves into puppy pose. The hands come forward, and then I'm going to walk my knees back a little bit too. So as I hinge my hips back, I'm stretching into my shoulders. If it feels okay, you can let the head drop down toward the mat, or you could put a block or a blanket under it. And in my body right now, I'm feeling a stretch in the shoulders, I'm feeling a stretch in the back, a little bit of a stretch in the hips too. So you might feel something a little bit different. Now, if you like, you can start to rock your head side to side. So I'm rolling over to the left side of my forehead and then over to the right side of my forehead. And as I do that, I find the stretch changes a little bit. If you like, you can explore movement here too. And remember that if there's any discomfort or pain, we're going to change the shape, change the pose until it feels better for you. So if there's any pinching or discomfort in the shoulders, take the arms a little wider or bend the elbows. Now let's come back through to center, walk the hands back in and come back to our tabletop position. We'll take a few rounds of cat and cow. Up to you if you want to have your toes untucked or tucked. I'm going to have mine tucked here. Drop the belly down. We'll move the spine into a back bend first. The chest pulls forward and then maybe you look up. Now from your tailbone, tuck under and round your lower back and the middle back and the upper back as you look toward the direction of the knees. Do that a few times, dropping the belly down, moving the chest forward, and curling and rounding under. Now, just because we don't have a lot of time to practice today doesn't mean that we're rushing through the poses themselves. So we want to make sure that we're still moving at a pace that allows us to really feel into the body. As you finish this next cow pose, come back through to neutral and let's step the right foot forward to the front of the mat. Now there are lots of ways you could position the hands. You might have one hand on either side of the front leg, or if that feels a little bit tight, you can put both hands on the inside. You can also use blocks. I'm going to assume for today that you don't have blocks. And let's see how it goes as we bend and straighten the front leg. Does it feel like you have enough room for your chest and your belly, or do you need to move the hand to the inside of the leg? Both ways work really well. They're just a little bit different. So today I've got both hands on the inside of the leg. I really like to use blocks when I have them handy, but I know that that's not always something that everybody has. So we're just easing ourselves forward and back here. The front leg is bending and straightening. And if you find that there's some discomfort in your back knee, then you can always take a moment, add a little cushion under the knee, or fold over the outer edge of the mat so you get a little bit of support there. Next time that your knee comes forward, we'll pause right here and hold for a few breaths. So you may feel or notice that there's a stretch through the front of the left hip. Some people are going to feel more on the inside of that right leg. You may find something else in your body. As I mentioned earlier, if you're feeling like it's a lot of weight on the wrists, prop yourself up on 2 fists instead. That is a great way to practice. Really good. All right, let's begin to straighten that right leg now. So as you go back, you may need to walk your front foot forward a little bit. And you can let your toes lift away from the floor here, kind of pointing your toes toward the ceiling. As you hinge your hips back, see if you can keep your left hip in line with your left shoulder so it's not kind of tilting off to the side. And then see if you can just let yourself breathe here. If the sensation in the back of your right leg is so loud or so intense that breathing is difficult, then let's bend that knee a little bit more. We want this to be something that's really quite doable. We'll take another 2 breaths here. And then slide your right knee back to the left. Now, before we come to the second side, let's come up to stand on our knees. If you need some support under the knees, take a moment and put something there, or you could do this part standing. So if it's uncomfortable, stand up. Now we're going to squeeze the back of the hips. So if you want to touch your buttocks here, give a little push there. They squeeze, they firm up. Pull your shoulder blades together and down, and then see if you can feel a little stretch, a little lift. It's almost as though you're trying to take your 2 front hips and pull them up toward the chest. You can keep the gaze sort of forward here, so I'm not going to encourage you to drop your head back at this point unless you know that's something that feels really good to you. Just trying to get a little stretch across the front of the body before we move into the second hip stretch. And then we'll send the hips back, hands come back down to the floor, and we'll step left foot forward. Bend and straighten into your left leg. You may notice that there are different sensations here. You may notice that it feels better to adjust your hand or your foot or your knee. Whether you're somebody who practices often and knows a lot about the yoga practice, or you're somebody who's brand new, every time we step onto our mat, even if it's just for a few minutes, it's an opportunity to get to know ourselves better. So things are always changing. Things are always different in my body. And sometimes things I thought I knew turn out to not be the way I thought they were. Next time that your left knee is bent, let's pause there, hold for a few breaths. Notice if your shoulders are creeping up around your ears. See if you can encourage them to relax down a little bit, to soften away from the ears. See if you can notice where the biggest sensation of stretch is. And then see if you can notice anything beyond that in your body. So I can feel the front of my right hip is stretching. But I'm also feeling that my hands are on the floor and that it would feel better to untuck my back toes, so I did that. And then it's time for us to start to straighten the left leg. Take your time, adjust yourself. The left knee never needs to go all the way straight here. We're just trying to find a place where we feel a stretch that's interesting or relevant to you. Maybe something that gets your attention a little bit, but nothing that feels like it's really painful or over the top. As you stay here for another breath or two, let's repeat that same process. Notice where the biggest stretch in your body is. And then see if you can zoom out, pan out away from that and feel anything else in your body. I just noticed that I was having some tension in my neck that didn't feel so good. So I've dropped my head. That feels a little better. And then we'll bend into the left knee. And now as you walk your hands forward, let's step forward. Take your time to come up to stand here. And as you come up into our mountain pose, feet are just a comfortable distance apart. Pause and breathe for a moment here. So we're standing up in our practice, But we've still got some work to do. We're not stepping off the mat yet. See if you can still stay present, stay embodied. Now we're taking the hands to the hips, pulling the shoulder blades together and down, and we're repeating that work that we did earlier, either kneeling or maybe you were standing then too. Squeeze the glutes forward, shoulder blades dropping down the back, and a little lift in the chest. Now my hips have started to move forward, so that's okay. That feels all right in my body. And then I'm seeing if I can find just a little bit of a back bend here, maybe something that feels good in my body. As you take another breath or two, it's your choice. The chin could be resting toward the chest. You could be looking in the same direction that the chest is facing. Some folks may find that it feels good to let the head drop back here, but you'll know if that's you or not. Let's come back up to our standing position. Shake the arms out, shake the legs out a little bit. A little more work for the shoulders. Let's take the arms wide and then bend your elbows into a cactus shape. We're going to slide the arms in. Put your left arm on top of the right and hug the shoulders. Slide them apart and squeeze the shoulder blades together. Let's do that on the other side. Right arm comes over, squeeze. Shoulder blades come together. Squeeze. Now, the next time that the left arm slides across the right, if it's in your body to grab onto the hands, go ahead. If it's not, as it's not for many people, I'm going to encourage you to keep your left arm straight. And you'll have the right forearm right here on the left forearm, so that as you pull back, your left elbow is straight and we're getting a big stretch across the outer left shoulder. Now, see if you can drop your ear toward the shoulder. Take a few breaths. And let yourself just experience this moment. If your left hand was tense, you can let the left fingertips drop toward the floor. Good. Bring your head back to neutral. Unwind the arms. This time, let's bring the hands back behind you and interlace the fingers. So I've clasped my hands together behind me. Now, you may or may not be able to straighten your arms. Some days I can and other days I can't. If you're able to straighten your arms, feel free to do that. Otherwise, keep the elbows bent. Pull the shoulder blades together and down here. And then again, a little lift in the chest. So we're looking for a stretch across the front of the chest. And if you wanted to turn it into a bigger back bend, push the back of the hips forward by squeezing your glutes, squeezing your rear end, and then lift the chest a little bit more for a back bend. Take one more breath where you are, making sure that there's no discomfort in the lower back. If there is, it just means you've gone a little further than you needed to today. And we'll meet ourselves back in neutral. Release the hands. Bring your elbows back into your cactus shape. Slide your right arm across the left now and either braid the hands together or walk your right arm into the crook of the left elbow. Now take a look. I'm holding below the elbow and I'm keeping this arm straight. So that helps me, sorry, I'm trying to stay off of my microphone. That helps me to get a little bit more of a stretch through that outer shoulder. Then I'm dropping ear toward shoulder and breathing here. Notice if the right fingertips are active. See if you can just let them soften. And we'll hold for a few breaths. Good. Back through to center. Release the arms. Shake that out. All right, I want to address the front of the hips and the fronts of the legs here. So you may need a wall. Step over to the wall, place your hand on it, and then reach back and hold your foot. Now, if the foot isn't there for you to hold, no problem. That's not always accessible for everybody. You can place the foot on a chair behind you and squeeze the back of that hip. So we're looking for that big stretch through the front of the thigh. If you're holding the foot, it's the same thing. We're squeezing the back of the hip and breathing here. This is one of the most important stretches that we can do because it is a little bit of a difficult area to stretch. We don't always get in there as often as we do other parts of our body. Let's let that go and turn around if you need to, and we'll do the other side.
So other foot could come to the chair or the table, whatever you're working with, or you hold the foot. I like to hold on to the wall for this one, not because I don't have good balance, but because I'm not interested in making this a balance pose. Like I don't want my body to have to worry about holding me up when I'm really concerned with letting the body relax into the stretch. So you're welcome to explore it as a balancing pose, but just know that if we want to get the most out of the stretching part of this pose, supporting with a wall or a chair or something else will be helpful. Stay for another few breaths. It's really good if you can stay with this a little bit longer than you might do on your own. Oftentimes I see folks would not hold the stretch as long as they do when I'm with them. So it can be really helpful to stay a little bit longer. Let that leg go and shake it out. All right. Let's come to a wide position. So I'm standing lengthwise on the mat. My toes are facing the long edge, and we'll do a standing forward fold here. So a little bend in the knees as you start to tip forward. Now, if your fingertips are able to touch the floor, that's great. If not, you might have blocks, or you can always keep the hands on the hips. That's just fine. Wherever you are, see if you can keep just a little softness to the knees today. Let the head hang, let the back of the neck be really long. You might even shake your head yes and no. Now, you're likely to be experiencing a stretch through the backs of the legs or the inner thighs here. Some folks won't feel too much at all, and that's okay too. But let's start to explore this a little bit by bending into the left knee. So as we send the weight over to the left, that right leg here gets a little bit longer. And if you like, you can either let yourself stay at the center, hanging, or you could walk yourself over to the side. If you're up a little higher, if the hands don't touch the floor, you can rest your hands on the thigh. And then we'll shift it over to the other side. Hands might be on the floor or they might be on the leg. See if you can let your spine and your head and your neck be a little bit uninvolved. So we're not trying to work there. We really want to stay focused on the legs for this part. Take another breath or two here. And then come back through the center. Now we'll walk our way around to the front of the mat and step back into tabletop position and set up for a twist. You may need a little support under the head and shoulders. We'll see in a moment. This is thread the needle. Take your right arm and bring it under your right shoulder so the right side of your head comes to the mat. Now for some of us, this will not be ideal. We'll feel a little squished or it won't feel comfortable. You may find that you benefit here from placing a blanket or a pillow under your shoulder or your head. But if the pose just doesn't feel good, then instead I want to encourage you just to take a simple cross-legged position and twist to one side or another, and we'll do the same on the other side. So if it's working for you, we're in thread the needle, gently pressing the hand into the floor to rotate. And again, if that's not working, then we're just taking a simple twist. Good, let's come out of this side, move to the other side, arm weaves under and roll onto the shoulder. Stay here for a few breaths. Notice if your neck and your jaw are uncomfortable. Is there anything you can do to support them, or are they clenched for a reason? As we take these final breaths here, see if you can notice everything there is to notice about how your body's feeling. And then we'll come back up to our hands and knees position. Turn over, lie down on your back, please. We've got just one more thing to do before we bring our practice to a close. Let's cross the left ankle over the right thigh. We're going to address the back of the hip here. If it's comfortable for you to bring the legs in and hold behind the leg, you can do that. Or it might feel better just to have that foot on the floor and stay and breathe. Sometimes it's nice to rock the hip a little bit side to side. So we've worked our way through our entire body, stretching into the shoulders, the legs. Did a little back bending, a little twisting, and a little forward folding. Let's uncross this leg and come to the other side. Again, if it's comfortable for you to pull the legs in, if that feels like it would be useful, you can do that. Otherwise, keep the leg on the floor. Now, of course, in just 20 minutes, we're not able to do all of the poses, right? There's so much more that we could do. We've just picked a few things to work on today. If you're not familiar with all of these poses, then this is a good starting place. Well, one of the things we can start to do as you get more comfortable with the yoga practice, you may already be there, is to notice, oh, we didn't do this, and that feels really good to me. And you can always swap out something that I'm doing for something that you know will suit your body better. Or you can start to make time for it in your day elsewhere too. You're the expert on your body. Last moment or two here. And then foot comes back to the floor if it left. And to close, 2 feet together, knees out to the side, and just let the hands rest where they're comfortable. I've got mine on my belly. And let's take 5 complete breaths in and out here. Supta Baddha Konasana. As you breathe in, feel the belly filling. As you breathe out, feel yourself maybe settling a little bit more into the floor, into the earth. If it feels stressful to notice your breath, then see if you can just stay with sensations of your body supported by the floor, by the earth, by gravity. And if you need to change the shape of your legs or the shape of your body position at any time, please do. Now, as we come to the end of our time together, if you have a few more moments to stay, go ahead and stay. Maybe straighten the legs or add on another shape or two, another pose or two that feel right for you. Otherwise, it's time to move on. We can step the feet in, roll over to one side or another, and maybe come back to the seat. Thank you so much for taking 20 minutes out of your day to practice with me. I hope that your body's feeling good. I hope that your mind's feeling even better. I look forward to seeing you soon. Be well.